Good morning, everyone. Welcome to week number 2 in Biology 120 lecture. Let's see what we've got going on this week. So last week, you took a look at the scientific method, which is an organized way for us to do science, including biology. It helps us answer questions in a very organized way with a lot of checks and balances in it, which is also extremely important. We also took a look at the 8 characteristics of life. And you decided why they're important, and hopefully you understand that every organism has to meet all of these characteristics of life. And in your discussion of viruses, which was part of that assignment, I hope that you also realize that viruses do not meet all those criteria, and therefore we don't consider them living. Okay, we'll get into viruses more later on. This week is all about chemistry, though. So I want to encourage you to read chapters 2 and 3 in your textbook, at least skim through so that you know how to go back and review certain sections that you're going to need. One word. So you've got all this information that you have to cover, and you have these assignments that you have to do. And so you'll come up against a question like, what's the importance of carbon to life? And granted, you can just Google that, right? You can Google it. But the only problem is you don't have any context. You don't really understand where that person is coming from. You don't know if they're an expert. So I encourage you not to do that, not to just Google the answers to your questions, and to look back at your textbook. This is a free textbook, free, which is so awesome. It's been peer reviewed by people like me. I helped peer review the microbiology textbook, and I have used the OpenStax biology textbook for a long time now. So please use this resource. Take a look at chapters 2 and 3. Chapter 2 is on inorganic molecules like water, and chapter 3 is all about the organic molecules. And organic just means molecules of organisms. So I'm going to cover just a little bit right here. So water. Water is the most important compound to life. It is tremendously important. It's found in every single cell that ever has been or ever will be or is alive right now. So water has to be tremendously important to cells. And it's not just to the organism. So some of you are going to say, when you get to some of the questions, I'll cover this a little bit later on, but you'll get to the question, they'll say, why is water important to life? And some of you will say, well, we have to drink water every day or else we'll die. That is true. But why is important? Why is water important? It's important on a cellular level. It is found in every cell. So it has to do something with the life of the cell. And it does quite a few things. It's a solvent. It allows things to dissolve in it. But I think the most important characteristic in cells is the fact that it can absorb so much heat before it turns from liquid water to gaseous water, which is steam. Well, where's heat being produced? Through all those chemical reactions that are taking place in cells, and there are so many. Every one of those chemical reactions creates a little bit of heat. And so the water is like an insulator. It keeps the cell from burning up by absorbing all that heat from all the chemistry that's going on in cells. So that's what I think is most important characteristic is. It has others besides being a solvent. It adheres, it coheres. So take a look at those. All right, so you're going to read about that in chapter 2. Carbon is also an extremely important element. It is the element of life. A carbon atom forms 4 bonds with other atoms or molecules, and that means that it can make very huge, very complex molecules, and that's what you need in order to sustain life. You can't have just a bunch of simple molecules hanging out together and produce some huge gigantic organism like us. That's just not going to work. You have to have complexity in order to make life. And so that's what carbon affords us. It is an element, carbon. Then in chapter 3, you're going to learn about the 4 groups of organic molecules. So we've got carbohydrates. Very important energy sources, carbohydrates. You know that. Sugars, starches, you know that because you've read about dieting stuff. But also some carbohydrates are structural. Lipids are hydrophobic. That's their most important characteristic. That means they're water-fearing. They don't mix, with aqueous solutions or with water, period. And so lipids include fats, which are used in storing energy, but also they're important hormones, etc. Lipids are very important. They make up cell membranes. The phospholipids make up cell membranes, which divide the outside environment from a cell from the inner contents of the cell. Then we have proteins. Most of the proteins that are in cells are called enzymes, and enzymes do work. And so these are the molecules that carry out all the biochemistry in cells. Then we have nucleic acids. Nucleic acids come in several different forms like DNA and RNA, and you know that those contain genetic information. And so that's the code to allow an organism to continue into the next generations by producing all the molecules that that cell/organism needs. But also there are some important energy molecules like ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is so important to shift in energy from this molecule to enzymes to do all that work that we talked about. So do read through those sections, and your module overview does give you a really nice table that tells you the functions of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. So take a look at that. I tell you that in item 3. Okay. All right, totally skip this one. Your discussion board postings always are due. The initial post is due by Thursday night, and your 2 response posts are due by Sunday night. Okay, in your initial post, you are going to talk about the importance of the macromolecules that are considered food. What are they? Carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, nucleic acids, and also water. And why are they essential in cells? Not just in the organism, but in cells. What is it that they do inside cells? So you'll be talking about the functions of those 4 groups of macromolecules and the function of water in cells. And then you're also going to answer the question, okay, if we gave you this equation, food plus water plus some factor X equals life, what would you say that factor X would be? Let's see what you can come up with and support your opinion about what your factor X is, okay? Your 2 responses, you're going to talk about the importance of nucleic acids in diet. Are they found on food labels, and why or why not? One thing to note here is go and look at the basic structure of a nucleotide. A nucleotide is a subunit of a nucleic acid. Look at the structure of it, okay? It's basically a ribose or a deoxyribose. Those are sugars, with a nitrogen group, which looks a heck of a lot like a part of a protein, and then a phosphate group. So anyway, take a look at the structure of nucleotides, and this will give you an idea about maybe why or why not nucleic acids are on food labels. And then you're going to write a journal entry. So a journal entry is basically an essay where you're answering questions, and you're going to have to make sure that you answer all the questions in the journal entry instructions, okay? You're going to talk about the properties of carbon. I've already mentioned the importance of those 4 bonds, and the link between fossil fuels and carbon dioxide. This is due on Sunday night by midnight. Okay, watch Reliable Sources video, and also take a look at the Shapiro Library website, because you will be needing those for your final project, and you're going to have to use reliable sources as sources for your final project. So let's talk about your final project for a second. Take a look at the final project, because next week you have your first section. I'm going to cut this off. Anyway, the first section of the final project due, your milestone 1. If you want to do any other topic besides the ones that are listed in the list for the final project, you need to email me so that I can approve it. If you go ahead with it and it's not appropriate, then that really is going to mess up your milestone 1. You have to do something that is doable, but also is not so small in scope that you won't find enough information about it, because this final project is pretty doggone big. It has a lot of moving parts to it. So here are some examples that we give you in the final project guidelines. Population ecology, you could be interested in conservation, and so like for me, I'm interested in all kinds of well, I'll get it straight in a second. Conservation. So maybe feral hogs. So we have a huge population of feral hogs in South Carolina, and they are devastating. You see the effects of them if you walk through the woods. Even if you don't ever see one, you'll see the effects of them, because they just plow through forests and pastures and crops and everywhere. So maybe I wanted to do a project on feral hogs in South Carolina. That's an example of population ecology, studying the population of a species in a given area. Air pollution. Maybe you're struggling in a city and you have a lot of air pollution problems. This was really brought to light when everything was shut down at the beginning of COVID, because you could take a look at the skies over cities like Los Angeles or Mexico City, and there was no pollution. It was amazing. And now, of course, now that we've all gone back to work, at least most of us have, we see air pollution cropping back up again. So maybe it's an issue in your area that you're interested in. Water pollution. Some of you are interested in water treatment and water pollution. This is a good topic. The energy crisis. Should we switch over to other alternative forms of energy? Are you interested in one particular type? Like I've always been interested in hydrogen gas, but it's not really catching on too much. And like my nephew has a Tesla that he has to charge up all the time, so maybe that's what you're interested in. Eutrophication, the change in a body of water as it ages out, and all bodies of water do. I guess even the oceans do, but that's going to be a really long time before our oceans age out. So eutrophication can be something as small as an algal bloom, like a red tide. So maybe that's something that you're interested in, especially if you live in a place like Florida, because there are red tides just about every year. The human population and how it is changing and increasing so very quickly. And in your lifetime, it is going to go through the roof. Just watch out. Our last week is dedicated to the human population too. Genetic modification. You're not going to find too much about genetic modification in humans, but you will find a lot on crop plants and crop animals, livestock, that sort of thing, landscape plants. So you could use that as your topic. Deforestation, a very important topic these days, especially in Brazil, because the government is encouraging the slashing of the rainforests to make way for agriculture. So it's a very big problem in our world today, but there are some initiatives to plant more and more trees. So anyway, it was 1 million trees and then 1 billion trees, and now I think it's more than that. There are different organizations that are encouraging the planting of trees. Biodiversity and endangered species. I really love this topic. I love conservation of endangered species like the bald eagles, etc. So if you're interested in that, global warming and climate change, of course, there's a lot of information about that, and waste management. Other than that, other than those topics, if you are interested in something else, especially something more contained, smaller project, maybe in your particular location, you do need to email me so we can work it out where you could do that topic, but have enough information that you're going to get to actually make a whole final project. So just email me during this week if you're not going to choose one of these topics. And this week, you need to decide what you're going to choose, because next week you've got an assignment due. All right, my tip of the week this week is to jot down a list of things to answer for each assignment. I use a little Post-it note because I need that too. Even in your grading, I'm not kidding. Even in your grading your assignments, I jot down the importance of carbon, connection between fossil fuels and carbon, byproduct of fossil fuel burning, that sort of thing. I jot it down so that I don't miss anything when I'm doing my grading, and you should do that so you don't miss anything when you're writing your assignment. And that doesn't take much paper. So anyway, let me know if you need anything this week. There's my name again, Dr. Janie Sigmon, m.sigmon@snhu.edu. I'm here for you. I'm going to be out of town for a few days, but I will be checking my email all the time, and I will answer you if you have any questions. So I hope that you have a wonderful week, and let me know if you get stuck on anything, because I'll be glad to help you. Have a great week.